everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cardolicchio. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, where we find function in a dysfunctional world. We have a very special guest today. I am excited. Welcome, Dr. Deb Matthew. Deb, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation. I've been looking forward to this. I want to thank everybody for listening in today. Just a little bit about Dr. Deb. She is the Happy Hormones Doctor. I love that, the Happy Hormones Doctor. Best-selling author, 2 books. The first one is This Is Not Normal, but today we're going to be talking about why can't I keep it up anymore? She's an international speaker, educator, wife, and mom of 4 boys. I have 1, you have 4. Suffered for years with fatigue and irritability, solved her own problem. We're going to get right into that first. You've been on numerous national podcasts, broadcast shows, NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. Dr. Deb, welcome to the show. What was that fatigue and what was that irritability that you had to change in your life?
Yeah. So I was shrieking at my kids. I had no patience. Like I knew something was not right. My husband didn't know what the heck to do with me, but nothing in my medical training helped me understand what was wrong. And it's actually what changed for me is I read a book by Suzanne Summers about women's hormones. And you know, I'm sure, right, as medical professionals, we do not want to get our information from celebrities. So I had no interest in reading that book, but my husband felt like I really ought to read it because when he looked at, the bullet points on the back of the book, he was like, check. And that changed.
You were all of those.
I was all of those things. And it really opened my mind and allowed me to realize there's all this stuff I didn't learn at medical school. So my hormones were out of whack. My thyroid was out of whack. I was starting to become perimenopausal. I was in my late 30s. My female hormones were starting to shift. And once I got my hormones back in balance, I got my energy back, my kids got their mom back, my husband got his wife back, and I got my life back, but I couldn't go back to just being a regular doctor writing prescriptions all day long because that just didn't make sense anymore. It just wasn't right. So for the last 14 plus years, I've been helping men and women get their hormones back in balance so they can get well, often get off prescription medicines and love the way they feel.
Right, and this is a very important topic, and I find this fascinating because a lot of medical doctors, allopathic doctors, osteopathic doctors, chiropractic doctors, such as myself, we have this aha moment where we kind of change and we go from traditional over to something, I don't want to know if I want to say non-traditional, but it's definitely different than the training that we had, right? So I find that interesting. So let's talk about why can't I keep it up anymore? What was the motivation to write this book?
Well, because of my own personal issues, I started working with women to get their hormones in balance. And, they're struggling with their weight, they're tired all the time. And a lot of them lost interest in sex, like really just could care less whether they ever had any kind of intimacy ever again. Right. But of course, once we got them feeling better and their energy better and they felt better about how they looked and they got their interest back, well, then they would come back to me and they'd say, hey, Dr. Deb, I feel great. It's fabulous. But my husband's not really keeping up. Can you do something about him? And so, I started seeing the men too.
Right. So let's talk about hormone deficiencies in men. I'm 59 years old. So I'm at that age, or maybe I'm even older than that. So what are some of the symptoms? How do men feel when they have some type of hormone deficiency?
It's subtle. And for women, right, we get our menstrual cycles and hot flashes, like kind of in our face a little bit. For men, it tends to happen really gradually over time. So it just kind of creeps up on you. And the next thing you know, you're sitting on the couch in your underpants watching bowling. Like you lose the drive. And when men's hormones get low, fatigue is a really common symptom. Mood, like feeling just flat, just lost that zest for life.
Right. You got a lot of brain fog going on.
Yeah,
right?
Brain fog, like focus, memory. Right. But it's really about how you feel on the inside. So loss of muscle mass, longer time to recover after you exercise, more prone to injury, that kind of thing. But testosterone is what gives us drive, motivation, get up and go, like want to take on and conquer the world. And I kind of fizzles away. But what I hear most men say when they come in to see me is, I don't quite feel like myself. I feel kind of old, but maybe it's just my age. I'm not 18 anymore.
Right.
And my response to that is, okay, fine. If you're 95, we are totally blaming it on your age. But if you're 35 or 45 or 55, it's not your age. Something's wrong and we need to fix it.
I have that all the time. Male patients come in, Dr. Deb, and they have that, I don't want to use the word anxiety or depression, but they're low. Like you said, they're low. They're not feeling well. And they always say that. It's like the joke among men, right? Oh, I'm old. I'm 59 years old. I have a 13-year-old. I have a teenager. I'm not ready to hang it up. All right. I'm not ready to hang it up with my wife either yet. So there's a lot more life to go on. So we're talking about testosterone. What causes that low testosterone in men?
So there's a whole list of things. So age is one, but again, if you're 95, fine, but there's lots of other things. And we are seeing low testosterone in men at younger and younger ages. So even I have patients in my practice in their 20s who have low testosterone. So one of the factors is a lot of the chemicals that are found in our environment are hormone disruptors, and they can interfere with testosterone production, and they can actually boost our estrogen levels because they act like estrogens in our system. So then we get this imbalance. And so skincare products have something in them called parabens. That's a chemical. Antibacterial soap was made with triclosan. That lowers testosterone. It actually has been taken off the market because we know that it does this. But there are atrazine, which is an herbicide. So it gets sprayed on the crops, but then, it rains and it runs off and it goes into the streams. And atrazine causes boy frogs to turn into girl frogs. Now, we don't exactly fully know what it does to boy humans because nobody is signing up to be the, person in that study to get sprayed with atrazine. But, but it gets into our bodies because it's in the environment. So these are just a couple of examples of these chemicals that get in the way. And we know that these are problems, but it's so hard to even know what you're being exposed to. Plastics is another one. So, if you put saran wrap over your food and stick it in the microwave, when that saran wrap heats up and the moisture from the steam, it pulls the chemicals into the food and then they get in your body. So chemicals is one reason. Alcohol is another. So a little bit of alcohol might be okay, but too much alcohol is toxic to your body and toxic to the testes, and testosterone level can go down. Pain medication. So for people who have to be especially on opioid medications, very, very important cause of low testosterone. And when your testosterone is low, you hurt more. It's anti-inflammatory. So you get stuck in this cycle and of depression and chronic pain. And if we can restore testosterone, you can feel better. It makes it much easier to potentially not need so much of the pain medications. There are other prescription medicines like high dose statins for your cholesterol. Cholesterol is what your body uses to make testosterone in the first place. So if we drive your cholesterol down into the dirt, that means testosterone can go down. And of course, we don't want you to have a heart attack, but testosterone is good for heart health. So we want you to have enough testosterone. Your heart's a muscle. It needs testosterone to be strong. There are other prescription medicines that can do this too. But there are a lot of things in our modern world that lower testosterone that can be fixed, to help restore things. And a really important one that I want to talk about is stress.
Yes. Go ahead. Cortisol. We're going right there.
We're going to cortisol. Okay. So I don't know if you noticed, but we got a pandemic. We've had politics, There's so much stress right now. And when we are stressed, cortisol goes up to help us cope with stress. So that's good in the short term. The problem is when we've got stress day in, day out, then our cortisol level rises and it can kind of get stuck. And high cortisol shuts down testosterone production. So stress causes low testosterone. And then, when your testosterone is low, because you've kind of lost that confidence and drive, then we tend to have a hard time making decisions. We worry about things. We second guess ourselves. We don't feel good about ourselves. All those things just stress us out more. So stress is a huge cause of hormone imbalances for men and for women. And in my experience, if all we did was, take a guy, slap on some testosterone gel and not address the other factors that are going on, like some things can get better, but we don't really get you all the way back.
No, and as a matter of fact, what I have found in my own practice, individuals, men who are coming in to see me, who are going to different types of doctors, getting shots or gel, they're really not much better at all. And I find it that there's all of this other stuff, if you will, that needs to be discussed. And what I'm finding out is that I'm actually like becoming like a kitchen person, and I'm going in to homes and I'm saying, hey, listen, you know what? I don't want you to take this anymore. I don't want you to eat this. I don't want you to eat that. I want you to perhaps get rid of this makeup or that makeup. You got herbicides, pesticides, insecticides on all of these foods that you're eating. And stress is so important because we are in the middle of a pandemic. Dr. Deb, I had a patient yesterday where they haven't been out once since the pandemic, at their wits' end. And so the anxiety, the worry, the depression that's going on, I said, get up, get outside. I said, you want to wear a mask? I said, you're going to be alone. But if you want to wear the mask, go for a walk, get a little vitamin D, get some fresh air, and let's get going, because I'm becoming a therapist at times. And I'm like, okay, I may have to refer you to somebody. That's way outside of my, scope. And it was sad. It was sad that this woman who's lost 40 pounds, she still feels depressed, Food. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, they get caught in a cycle, right? Because if your hormones are imbalanced, then you feel kind of depressed and stressed, but that causes your hormones to go out of balance. And so you get caught. And if the real problem, and this is especially true for men, if a man is depressed and he walks into the doctor and he says, listen, I'm down and I'm tired all the time, I've lost interest in what Prozac, right? Like instantly you will be handed a prescription for an antidepressant. But if the real problem is low testosterone, the Prozac's not going to work.
It's not going to do anything, 100%. And I find that a lot. Men and women are coming in and they have the baggie, right? Filled, and Prozac is invariably one of those. So stress is a real nasty. It adversely affects men. How else does it adversely affect men?
Well, when we're stressed, we often don't sleep well. And
right.
So we need good quality sleep for a humongous list of things, right? I mean, there's so many reasons why we need good restorative sleep. Our body heals when we're asleep, but we also make testosterone. Men and women have testosterone, but testosterone is made when you're in a deep sound sleep in the night. So if you're not in a deep sound sleep in the night, then again, your hormones are going to be disrupted. And when you don't have the right hormones, you don't sleep. Once again, we get caught in this cycle. But getting enough sleep is important, right? Putting yourself to bed and making sure that you get a good amount of sleep is another important point.
We're living in parallel universes, because one of the questions that I always ask, are you getting restful, restorative sleep? Yeah. Because without that, your biochemical pathways aren't working well. Yeah. And if they're not working well, no matter how well you eat, no matter what you're doing to help out, to even boost your T, it's not going to work. Yeah. All right. So let's get into the big question. All right. You want to get your vigor back. You want to feel better about yourself. What do you do? How can we help out? What's the protocol here?
Okay. So you want to take care of yourself. So let's start with food. You had started to go there and I interrupted you, but food. So for healthy hormones, we need a healthy diet that needs to include healthy fats. We need fats to make our hormones. Our hormones are made out of cholesterol, right? So if you're on a low fat diet, you're not feeding your body the right nutrients it needs for your hormones. We need fruits and vegetables that give us lots of those antioxidants. And another sort of a vegetable that's worth noting is the cruciferous vegetable family. So this is broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale. Right. These vegetables help us to process estrogen in a healthy way. And for men, if we get too much estrogen, not enough testosterone, doesn't feel good, it's not healthy, interferes with erectile function and all kinds of things. So cruciferous vegetables help to flush estrogen in a healthy way to help regain better balance. So we need a healthy diet, including healthy fats, lots of vegetables, including cruciferous vegetables. So that's the first step. Second step is exercise. And again, lots of reasons why we need healthy, exercise, but
all the time.
Yeah. Right. If we're trying to boost T, what we want to do is we want resistance exercise. So we want that kind of muscle building exercise, because When you're working your muscles, that gives your body a little bit of extra juice and boosts up the testosterone a little bit. So going for a walk is great. Jogging for, 5 miles is okay, but those aren't the types of exercise that are going to boost testosterone levels. And then of course there's stress management. So we talked about stress is bad. Like everybody knows stress is bad. The real question is, okay, well, great. What am I supposed to do about it? But I have some simple tips, because you can't eliminate stress. You can't run away from it. It's always going to be there. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to find balance, because there are things that you can do to bring balance in order to protect yourself and your body from the harmful effects of stress. So that's what we're really trying to do. So meditation is wonderful, but meditation is kind of like jogging for 5 miles. You can't just get up off the couch and jog for 5 miles. You got to walk first, you got to work out. So breathing exercises are easier, just deep, slow breaths. Another really great one is journaling, right? Get it out on paper, write it down. And I love feeling grateful. So if you find yourself, you are like just in the midst of it, you're totally stressed out. If you'll just stop, and sometimes it helps to say stop out loud or put your hands up to just kind of break the thought pattern, and think of 3 things that you're grateful for. You can always think of something no matter how bad it is, right? It's Friday, the sun is blue, whatever it is, but your body can't feel fearful, angry, bitter, upset, and grateful at the same time. So it's a really great way to put things into perspective, change what's going on in your body, and it can really be a powerful thing. So balance is another really important point. There are also some nutritional supplements that can help get hormones back in balance. So some of the hormones that are helpful for men include zinc. Zinc helps us to process testosterone. It's good for prostate health. It's a mineral, so we get it from our food. They get it from the soil. And the way that the agriculture is done these days, the soil doesn't have as much good nutrients in it as it used to. So for men, zinc is sometimes a good option. Another one that I would recommend is vitamin D. So even though it's not directly tied to our hormone levels, vitamin D itself acts like a hormone in your body. It's hard to, we don't really get it so much from our food. We get it from the sun, but it's winter and the pandemic and all the other reasons why we may not be getting as much sun. Most people don't have enough vitamin D. They don't, their levels are too low. So you need to get your level checked. Ask your doctor if your level is low, which it probably is going to be, then you take the vitamin D to get it back up again. There are a bunch of herbal things that are out there. So one of them is called tribulus. And this is an herb that can help boost testosterone at least a bit. So if your testosterone is all the way low, taking this herb is not going to get your testosterone all the way high. But, if you're just a little borderline, it can just give you that little bit of boost. And, if we can get you moving in the right direction and you start to feel a little bit better, then maybe you'll do more of those resistance exercises and eat your broccoli and, just get a little bit onto the right path. So another supplement that sometimes men use is called DHEA. And this is a hormone that comes from your adrenal glands, like cortisol and like adrenaline. So it's another one of those stress hormones, but it's an anti-aging hormone. And your body can use DHEA to make testosterone. It's like the precursor hormone. For men, you can make testosterone and estrogen from it. And the problem is, if you take more and more and more DHEA, you end up making more and more and more estrogen and only a little bit of testosterone. So,
so you got to watch.
Yeah. So some DHEA can give you a little bit of a boost, but you can't go overboard. And it would be my preference for men to find somebody who can help them with this, actually measure their levels of these things so that they're not just, taking stuff. You don't know if it's working, maybe you're wasting your money. But those are some things, that can be looked at.
I find that interesting because what happens is that when these patients come in, I like to do that vitamin and mineral panel, right? Because I think that's important. We need to find out what they're deficient in, because if not, you're just going to the store and you're just purchasing anything. And you could be going to a popular vitamin store. You have an 18-year-old that doesn't have any training. They don't know. But you know what? We've heard that this is good. So you can take this, and this is the product that the store sells, and this is the product that we make. So no, you don't want to do that. And this is important to note. Go to somebody who can order that blood work so that we can figure out exactly what you're deficient in order to help you out. I want to go back to something that you had mentioned before, because when I talk about fats, males, females, they look at me like, oh, fats are bad, fats are bad. What are these healthy fats that individuals need to eat in order to help boost their T?
Yeah. You know, as doctors, we messed up, right? For all that time, we said low fat. We were just wrong.
Low fat. That was all the rage.
Yeah. So we were wrong. It
Right.
turns out that, as you said, some fats are really good for you. We really want you to get them in your diet. And then there are some that we really don't. So maybe we can talk about both. The ones that we want, the healthy fats,
Right.
Are things like omega-3s, which are in fish. So omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. They are great for hormone health. They're great for getting your cortisol back in order, for your heart, your eyes, your skin, your brain. We want you to get omega-3s. They come from fatty fish, but the fish has to be wild caught. So if you get farm raised fish, they're fed like fish chow. They're not eating a natural diet, so they don't have omega-3s in them either. So wild caught fish. And you know, something that I talk to my patients about is, even though we don't love canned food, canned salmon, sardines, herrings, those are actually great sources of omega-3s. They're, you know, sometimes it's hard to cook fresh fish all the time. But anyway, that's another option. So fish and omega-3s. Nuts are another great source of healthy fats. Avocados, olive oil.
Love avocados. I'm recommending avocados all the time. As long as they don't have that food intolerance to it, that's one of the go-to foods, Dr. Deb. It's really fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, really very, very good.
And has more potassium than a banana.
That's right.
So, yes, avocado. And you know, the great thing is, if you're trying to eat healthy, the part we're trying to steer you away from is all the sugary stuff, right? We haven't talked about sugar yet, and we need to get to that. But when you add like some avocado or drizzle some olive oil over your green beans, it just gives a little bit more calories. It makes you feel more satiated, so then you don't feel starving after you ate your healthy meal. So those are some healthy fats. But the things we want you to steer away from is the trans fats. So those are the things that are in like Crisco, like the shortening. They're in a lot of commercially baked goods, like the muffins and the snack cakes and the things like that, that, you know, the stuff that never gets stale. You can
processed foods.
The back of your car. Yeah. You can open it a year later.
Processed foods.
And the deep fryer, the stuff in the deep fryer is another form of unhealthy fat.
A friend of mine has a hamburger. I won't say where it's from. The hamburger is exactly the way it was when it was purchased 15 years ago.
So it hasn't changed
since then, because these processed foods are just so bad for you. And it's going to knock out your T. And listen, I'm a research hound. And I remember about a year or so ago, I didn't think it was Mayo Clinic proceedings. It was November. And they're readily available, these processed foods. They're highly affordable and they're palatable. And during the pandemic, Dr. Deb, besides going to get toilet paper, everybody was in the middle aisles, and they were going for all of this stuff that
because you didn't know when you were going to get back to the grocery store, right? So you wanted all the stuff that was going to last forever.
That's right. So I do have a confession to make. Now, I am from northern New Jersey, and I grew up in a very Italian-American household. And, you know, my friends are going to rib me on Monday when I'm in the office. I do journal and I do meditate. I am going to confess that here. And Dr. Rizzolo, please take it easy on me on Monday morning when I get into the office. It's going to be, if he's listening to this over the weekend, it's going to be an interesting situation.
But, you know, I think that's important to say, because it's really powerful medicine, but we don't value it in our society. So I've traveled a lot. And when you go to Thailand, everybody's getting massages all the time. Every corner has massages. And in China, people are doing Tai Chi in the park. But here, if you were to sit on a park bench and do some ohms, everybody looks at you like you're some weirdo. It's just somehow. So my opinion, though, is, I don't know that it's my opinion, I think it's fact, is it's important to exercise. Everybody knows they're supposed to exercise. Everybody knows they're supposed to eat right, eat their broccoli. But this is just as important. It's like a three-legged stool. But this piece, this self-care piece, it's not part of our culture, which is too bad. It should be.
It's not. And really, I got into it. My son and I, we do Taekwondo, and part of getting your black belt was to meditate. And so I really got into it, and it took on a whole different meaning than just going om at one particular time. And the Grandmasters, if he's listening to this, thank you very much, because it's helped me out significantly in my life. Let's talk about gut health and hormones. Is there a connection there?
There sure is. So, especially there is a connection with estrogen. So we're talking about estrogen and testosterone need to be in balance. Some men make more testosterone. They flip too much testosterone over into estrogen. So testosterone goes down, estrogen goes up. Well, in your gut, you have to process these hormones. You have to get them out of your system. And if your gut microbes, if the kind of bacteria that live in your gut are out of balance, if you have too much of the wrong gut bugs, not enough of the healthy ones, we need the healthy ones to stay healthy. If they're out of whack, then what ends up happening is you don't properly flush the estrogen out of your system, and it builds up, and then we get more of that imbalance. And if you have an imbalance in your gut bugs, it's almost like a little low-grade infection, and that's a stress on your body. So you got your emotional stresses, you got all the regular stresses, but now you got this stress on your inside too. Drives up cortisol, knocks testosterone out of whack. So for all of us, a healthy gut is really important for healthy hormones. So in my practice, a lot of people come to see me because they think they have a hormone problem. And interestingly, what I find is if a guy walks in the door and says, I think my testosterone might be low, he's usually right. And if a guy walks in and says, no, I think my testosterone is fine, he's usually right. So it's not 100%. But but what we find a lot is when somebody has a hormone problem, often we find an underlying gut problem. Right. And it is likely that the underlying gut problem kind of set them up to end up with the hormones going out of whack. So when we're trying to get hormones balanced, we need to look at the whole person because all parts work together. And especially if we have somebody who ultimately is going to end up on some kind of hormone replacement therapy, we need to put those hormones in a healthy body. So gut health is really important for hormones.
It is. It is. I always, one of the tests that I do is I'm always looking for that intestinal permeability, that leaky gut type of a syndrome, because we need to get those probiotics, those prebiotics. We need to heal that gut in order for your whole physiology to start functioning. Okay, let's get into a very delicate subject, Dr. Deb, ED. Okay, erectile dysfunction. Oh yes. So, so what are some causes of erectile dysfunction?
Okay, low testosterone can be a cause of ED. Right. One of the things to look for is if you've lost morning erections, that's actually a tip off that your testosterone level is going down. But replacing testosterone or restoring testosterone is sometimes not enough to correct the whole problem. So sometimes it plays a role, but it's not the whole answer a lot of the time. Another really common one is that we get a buildup of plaque in the arteries. So just like you get plaque in the arteries in your heart, those are great big blood vessels. The blood vessels go into the penis. They're little teeny things, and it's easy for them to get gummed up. So now not enough blood flows in and you don't get a strong erection. And high blood pressure promotes this. Diabetes, we still need to talk about sugar because that's a huge problem with testosterone. But diabetics are much more likely to develop problems. There are a whole bunch of medications. Antidepressants are really common factors in causing problems with sexual function. And how depressing is that, right? So like you get this feed forward cycle.
It is. It just becomes a perpetual cycle at that point. And it's really a negative feedback loop, in my opinion, right?
Because, you know, the thing is, like, if a man is having trouble in the bedroom, it takes a hit on self-esteem, self-confidence. It affects intimacy. It affects, you know, sometimes how you relate to your partner, especially if your relationship maybe wasn't so solid to begin with. And then your spouse or your partner feels bad about them if you're not interested in them. Like, it just spirals. It affects all families and it affects your career. So it's more important than just, you know, you know, in the moment what's happening. But medications like antidepressants, blood pressure medications, some medicines that men need to be on for their heart. There's a whole list of medications. So that's one of the first places to look, is to sort of ask your doctor, like, are any of these pills that I'm on affecting my function? Drugs are another one. So like street drugs, marijuana, those things can cause problems. Alcohol. I mean, I think I think most men have figured that out, right? Like a little bit of alcohol might loosen you up. Maybe it'll make it more likely that you'll get lucky. But if you go too far,
right? You know what? Saturday night, you got a bottle of wine. You give it to your significant other. You never know what's going to happen at that point,
that's right. But 2 bottles of wine, you might be out of luck. So alcohol is not the greatest thing.
Right.
And stress, anxiety, depression, those things, again, you get
really right.
Cycle, right? Because then you worry about it before it happens. And then that worry interferes with being able to function. And stress, is really interesting because stress, your fight or flight system shuts down erections. And so, if you think about it, if you are being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, now is not the time. But
right.
So stress plays a role, and that cortisol. So there are a lot of things that that can be worked on, that can be improved on. And we got that little blue pill, but there's so much that can be done in order to restore function, so you don't need the pill.
Right. So let's talk about the little blue pill. And I have another confession. Like I said, I'm 59 years old, right? So my son's 13. You can do the math. I remember when we were first trying to have our son, James, it was difficult. We were a little bit older and we went to go see a urologist before we were done with, I don't think we even did the exam. And he was writing the prescription for the little, it was already done. So here I am. Okay, I have this pill. I take this pill and I'm like, I don't need the pill. Like you said before, right. Whether or not, I said, I don't need this pill. My wife was like, oh no, take it. The doctor prescribed it. You have to take it. I'm like, no, I'm a doctor. No, you have to take it. I will tell you, Dr. Deb, within 5 minutes, the pounding headache that I had from taking this pill, I'm like, how can anybody want to be in the mood when you're taking this? He didn't tell me I needed to take 5 Tylenol to counteract this pounding head. I remember I'm lying in bed. I had the cover over me. I had the pillow over my head. Don't turn on the light because it was pounding.
Honey, I got a headache, right?
Honey, I got a headache. It's role reversal tonight, sweetie. Yeah.
But you're right, because what the pill is doing is it's opening up blood vessels so that you can get more blood flow where you want it, but it's not limited to that area. You're getting more blood flow everywhere. So you were getting it in your brain and it was causing a headache. So it's not for everyone. We worry about heart risks, right? Because it's affecting blood vessels everywhere. Some men really don't feel good. Backaches, there can be different kinds of side effects. And sometimes it doesn't work well enough anyway, but it's just, that's how we do things in medicine. That's for medical doctors. That's what we were trained to do. You got a problem, we got a pill. And, it works okay for some people. It's okay for some people, but it's really not the right answer for a lot of people. And you got to take it at the right time. For some of them, it doesn't work well if you've eaten. It works a lot better if you take it on an empty stomach. Some of them, takes a relatively shorter period of time to work. Some takes longer to work. So, you got to dance around to get all ready here. So you got to not just think about your wife and the bottle of wine, but now you got to plan for all this other rigmarole. And a lot of them would just so much rather not have to deal with all of that and just be able to, regain their youthful function naturally. So
I agree.
So cleaning up your lifestyle habits, watching the medications and the exercise, right? Exercise opens up blood flow and that makes things better. So looking after yourself, doing all the things that you can do to optimize function, making sure your hormones are balanced and getting tested if you need to. Those things are all important. But can I tell you about some of the more modern technologies that we have that can actually turn back the clock?
That was my next question, because I find this interesting. And one of them that you have on your list, because I've read your book, one of them that you have on the list, a friend of mine is a salesman for, and he was telling me about this, and I was like, no. And he's like, yes. So what are the 5 steps, or what are those stronger erections? What can you do?
Okay. So the first thing is we want more nitric oxide because that's a chemical in your body that opens up the blood vessels. And you can take a nutritional supplement to boost nitric oxide. You can eat beets. Beets boost nitric oxide. So beets are good for you, but there are nitric oxide supplements. The one that I recommend for my patients has arginine and citrulline, which are 2 amino acids that boost nitric oxide. So a nitric oxide boosting supplement. There are those pills, like the little blue pill. And what that does is it recycles nitric oxide so it lasts longer in your body. So if your problems are a little bit more, down the road, we can sometimes use the medicine, at least in the short term, to open the blood flow, work with the nitric oxide in order to bring more nutrients and oxygen to the area to regenerate the tissues. The third thing that we sometimes use is actually a vacuum erectile device. So basically a penis pump. And we think about it like exercise for your penis. We are pulling blood in there to deliver the nutrients that your body needs. Okay. But then the one that's really exciting is something that's called GAINSWave. And GAINSWave uses acoustic shock therapy. So it's sound waves. And what these sound waves do is they create the little sound waves in the tissue, almost feels like a little elastic band flicking you.
Correct.
But as your body is healing from this little micro damage, it is rejuvenating. So it is building more blood vessels and collagen fibers and nerve endings and clearing out some of that little micro plaque that's blocking the arteries. So it is increasing blood flow, which is exactly what we want. Right. And it's done in a series of treatments over 6 weeks or so in order to get the blood flow going so that you don't need the little pill anymore. It works really nicely. Even for men who don't have a problem yet, it works really nicely to optimize what you already got and to maintain so that you don't run into a problem down, later on. Because if you haven't had an erection for 10 years, sometimes we can still help, but that's a much tougher problem to fix than if you're starting to notice that things are kind of just starting to go off. But that's been a game changer. Men are loving it. We're so happy that we have something that we can do that makes a big difference. So that's been great. And then the fifth one that we talk about is a P shot. And a P shot uses PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma. And that's where we draw your blood, just like you're getting a blood test, but we specially separate out the growth factors in your own blood. That's called platelet-rich plasma. And then we inject it right into the penis, which sounds horrifying, but we use numbing cream. It's really not a big deal. And it's just a one-time thing. It's not the same as there's a shot that you have to do every time you want to have an erection. That's not what I'm talking about. But your own growth factors trigger stem cells that are already in your tissues to regenerate. So again, more blood vessels and nerve endings and collagen fibers. So when we do the GAINSWave treatment, that pulls more stem cells into the area, then we activate them with our PRP and it turns back the clock and gives you more useful function.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. And we have the GAINSWave in the office and we treat a lot of athletes with hamstring problems with this. And a rep who's a friend of mine was explaining that this also can help out with ED. So we have our nurse practitioner take care of that. And it's really, the men are saying, wow, this is really beneficial for ED. One thing I want to touch upon before we get to sugars, because sugars is always a hot topic. Sugar is always a hot topic in nutrition and functional medicine. And I don't know why, is if you're a male out there, don't feel embarrassed when you're coming to see us. Am I right or am I wrong, Dr. Deb?
You're so right. Because of course, talking about this kind of thing makes you feel really self-conscious, really vulnerable, but this is a medical problem, just like any other medical problem. It needs to be treated just like any other medical problem. It actually, sometimes ED is a sign of heart disease or something else that, if we know, we can do something about it way ahead of time so that it doesn't cause you a problem. But we as medical providers, we're used to talking about this all the time. So we're fine with it. And so hopefully because we're comfortable with it, we can make you feel comfortable with it. And we're used to talking about this all the time, but it's so important and it's not worth staying at home, feeling bad about yourself, suffering unnecessarily when there is help available.
Don't worry about it. I mean, we're not going onto the internet and we're not saying, oh, so-and-so came into the office. We don't do anything like that. I mean, a friend of mine came to see me about a month ago, and that was one of the conditions. And he was sitting there in consultation with his wife. And I asked a couple of questions, and she was the one who mentioned it.
Yeah.
And both of them went like this. They went like this. They just kind of looked away. And I said, listen, it's okay. Yeah. We're here to help you out one step at a time. Let's take care of this. Let's take care of this. And let's look into this situation also. No reason to feel embarrassed about any of this stuff.
And, you know, I'm saddened to see that a lot of times too, men don't even really want to talk about this with their own partner, right? They're ashamed. And so if your partner doesn't know that you're having a problem, then they just think it's them, right? Like we as women think you're not attracted to us anymore. Like then it just causes more trouble. And it doesn't need to. We've got treatments now, like we can fix it, we can help. So please reach out for help.
Yeah, reach out for help and speak to your spouse, your significant other, because they don't feel loved and they don't feel attractive. And now they feel a certain way, you know. So, you know, listen, it's part of life, you know, and intimacy is part of life. So that's in part what we can help out with. Okay, let's talk about sugar. I see you chomping at the bit for the sugar. Let's talk about sugar.
Okay, so going way back to the beginning, when you talked about what causes low testosterone, this one really needed to be at the top of the list. When we eat too much sugar, which, you know, hard not to do with the food that's available to us. When we eat too much sugar, what happens is our blood sugar spikes up and our body makes a lot of insulin in order to try to get your blood sugar to come down. And over time, your cells start to become what we call insulin resistant. You become pre-diabetic. Your whole blood sugar metabolism starts to go out of whack. And that's such a common problem in society today. When your blood sugar metabolism starts to get a little bit out of whack, that is a really important cause of low testosterone. So if you are diabetic, you have a much greater risk of having low testosterone. And the flip side is true too. So if your testosterone is low, then you won't metabolize your blood sugar as well, and you have a greater risk of becoming a diabetic. So we don't often know which is the chicken and the egg, right? Was it your blood sugar that caused the testosterone or vice versa? So the first step would be, let's try to get your blood sugar back in balance and see if we can get your testosterone to normal. Another thing that happens for people who have diabetes or pre-diabetes, you know, they often get that belly fat. And that belly fat is like an estrogen production factory. So it takes whatever testosterone you're making, flips it over into estrogen, which, you know, just you don't feel good, you gain more weight, fluid retention, ED, et cetera. And this low testosterone, high estrogen is also a risk factor for prostate cancer. And what I see happening a lot is if a guy goes in and actually asks for a testosterone level, all that is done is just a testosterone level, but that's not enough information because let's say you're the guy, you got pre-diabetes, you got a little belly fat, you're making too much estrogen, your doctor finds your testosterone's low, hands you a prescription for some, I don't know, testosterone gel or whatever. Well, now we're going to give you more testosterone. You're just going to flip it over and make more estrogen, and we make the problem worse. And then you feel like, I'm taking this stuff, it's not working for me, like what's happening? So we need to go backwards, and we need to start with lifestyle habits, do your best to minimize the sugar in your diet, stable blood sugar levels, see if we can get the testosterone function to improve. And it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, you know what? I wanted to circle back to the sugar because it goes back to lifestyle, positive lifestyle changes. It goes back to taking those supplements. It goes back to resistance training and making those changes that you need to make, you know, to make this a lot better. You know, stay away from the sugars. It's just bad all the way around.
It's a toxin. Yeah.
It's really a toxin. I've had arguments with different nutritionists over this, and I'm like, you know, I guess when you're 18 years old, Dr. Deb, and you're playing football, I mean, I could probably eat one of those fast food burgers, and I have so much tea running in me at that time. I'm going to make muscular gains regardless of what I eat. But as you go on in life, it doesn't
stay that way, does it?
No, it does not at all. We're almost done with our hour here. I wish we had more time, but we're going to have you back on for a part 2 for This Is Not Normal. Okay, so everybody just hold on. We're almost done, not just yet. Last questions. Is there any other clinical pearls that you can give men to help them out with this?
Well, I believe that living well is the best medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And generally speaking, guys don't love going to see the doctor. And, when you do go to the doctor, if all they're doing is handing you a prescription, you can't really expect to feel well because we don't have happy pills. We have pills that can do damage control, but you just can't depend on pills to make you healthy. So if your cholesterol's creeping up, your blood pressure's creeping up, your sugar is not so great. Like if you're trending in the wrong direction, that's a warning sign. It's your body telling you, you're headed in the wrong direction. And I believe that if you want to live a high performance life, you need to treat yourself like a high performance vehicle. So if you drive a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, you are not going to leave it out in a hailstorm or take it off roading. You're going to buy the premium gasoline. You're going to get the engine tuned. So why don't we treat ourselves that way?
Right. And that's important to note because we do have a tendency to let ourselves go when it comes to treating ourselves. So self-care, what you're saying, is extremely important. Now, how can people purchase your book? Why can't I keep it up anymore?
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon and also on my website, signaturewellness.org. We got a whole page on there about men's health, and a link to the book is available there too.
All right, this is a fabulous book. I've read this book. It is a great book. Both males and females, please go out and purchase this book and read it. It is a game changer, and I recommend it. And please contact Dr. Deb if you have any issues or any problems, because listen, she is the expert. There's no doubt about it. She'll be able to help you along. So Dr. Deb, thank you very much for being on today. It's been a pleasure, honor and a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
So I want to thank everybody for listening to us today. Our podcast is growing because we have the best of the best of the best. Dr. Deb is that. So please share this with your family and friends. I'm Dr. Dan, suburbanwellnessgroup.com, 973-483-2277. Dr. Deb, we're going to schedule part 2 for the other book in a few minutes. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. Take care now. Bye.